The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
you're now about to witness the truth.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. I think today is Wednesday. Last I checked, the days kind of get by me. I'm going to be honest with you. Sometimes I don't know what day of the week it is, but I see the date here is March 30th. Only one more day left in the month of March, and then we are in April. Thank you so much for joining me. You could have been anywhere in the world tonight, but you decided to take some time with me. I am streaming live via Spreaker again for the first time this week. Technical difficulties over there for the first 2 days. So quite possibly we'll have some other technical difficulties with Spreaker tonight. So if something goes down and it's weird, just let me know and I'll replace the audio for you guys at the end of the show. But I'm glad to be back live on Spreaker, YouTube. What's going on, everyone? A lot of stuff going on in the news. And tonight there is apparently there's a marathon of town halls happening. So tonight they are right now, as we speak, they're speaking with former Senator and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. And they are discussing whatever they discuss on these town halls. An interesting thing happened at the town hall earlier today with Donald Trump. We'll talk about that. No, interesting, but not surprising, right? Not enough to really take up a lot of our time discussing it. It's just par for the course for Donald Trump. But I do want to talk about out of D.C. The Democratic Party in D.C., Washington, D.C., mistakenly kept Senator Sanders off of the ballot in D.C. Now, I read I read up on it, and it's causing a lot of panic in, not panic. Let me be fair. I don't think it's causing panic as much as frustration, because it seems this type of foolishness happens, and that's the nicest way I could say it, is foolishness, right? Really shenanigans. These types of shenanigans happen all the time with Senator Sanders. And in the article from thehill.com, it's clear that there you go, Freudian slip. Senator Sanders and Hillary Clinton both submitted their $2,500 fee before the deadline. But somehow Senator Sanders' name was left off, but not Hillary Clinton's name was left off. NBC News 4 reported that a voter in D.C. filed a challenge against the Vermont senator's registration. That would be held in April. That's not the real problem. The problem is that, actually, I'm sorry, it's right here in front of me. This is interesting. All right. So in the middle, dead smack in the middle, I was reading this one line and it just kind of caught me off guard. Dead smack in the middle of this issue that the Hill is reporting on is the fact that an individual voter in D.C. filed a challenge against Senator Sanders' registration, which will be heard in April. They're not crediting this to being the cause of his name not being on the roll. But it's odd that that's dead smack in the middle. So it gives you the impression that it has something to do with it. But according to the Hill, the reason his name is not on the roll is because of an administration registration paperwork error on the part of the DC Democratic Party. I don't care what the reason is. It's par for the course. Now, I'm not going to jump off the deep end like some of my beloved Bernie Sanders supporters. I love you guys, but some of you guys are making this to be apocalyptic. The actuality of the fact of the matter is that they have the right, they have the ability to overturn this and make sure that his name appears on the ballot. To fix the ballot issue, according to the Hill, the DC Council could have an emergency vote if necessary. DC Democratic Party Chairwoman Anita Bond has informed NBC. It can be fixed. I don't think that's the problem and the concern for most people. The concern for most people is that this is just one in many in a consecutive events that is sketchy at best. So this is a major deal for DC. If his name doesn't appear on the ballot, of course, that's a huge issue. The fact that it's not on the ballot now, the fact that he turned in his information, his registration filing, he did everything he needed to do at the same time as Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is on it, but he's not. It does leave a very bad taste in the mouth of Bernie Sanders supporters, and it should, quite frankly, leave a bad taste in the mouth of anyone who's an objective observer. But the primary is on June 14th. They have plenty of time to correct this. The question is, when will they correct it? How quickly will they correct it? And what caused it in the first place? Right. So this voter who filed, this is interesting. I don't know the context that this has, so I'll dig into it a little more for you guys tomorrow. But the fact that dead smack in the middle of the story, they're discussing the fact that it was a individual voter who filed a challenge against Senator Sanders' campaign, his registration, which shows you just a little gloss on top of the story, as if it wasn't bad enough. It just shows you the levels to which they're willing to play games in this election, right? There is no this, and I want them to understand, this is something that's very important to me. You know, in the way I live my life, I think it's pretty decent, you know, with the exception of a few bad habits that I have. But my code, my moral ethic, and my code that I live by is I give you exactly what you give me. And when you see stuff like this, these types of lowball smear campaigns, dragging this campaign through the mud, and you see someone actually challenge the registration of Senator Sanders in order to keep his name off the ballot, because that's the context that the story was cast. That shows you the level to which they're willing to go to try to win this. And I don't understand for the life of me, people who wallow in the mud, people who would do anything and everything to win, legal and illegal, moral and immoral, how they would expect anything else from the opposition. But what it is I think they do expect it, but what they like to do is feign outrage. They like to pretend like, oh God, Senator Sanders is so corrupt because he's running campaign ads, and his campaign ads tell the truth, but his truth is negative. And so therefore, according to Karen Finney on MSNBC, according to Karen Finney, this is a smear campaign by Senator Sanders. You see how that works? So they want to be able to wallow in the mud. They want to be able to play little tricks like this individual voter in DC who apparently has had enough impact on Bernie Sanders' name appearing on the roll that it's mentioned in this article. They want to be able to play games like that. But, you know, anytime Senator Sanders sneezes good, then, of course, then he's the bad guy. But the point of the story is mainly this, that his name is not currently on the roll, but it will be going if they have an emergency session. They vote in June. Their primaries are in June, and they have plenty of time to do so. So we're going to keep our eye. We're going to keep our eye on that. Now, here's something that I want to talk about also that I did not mention in my lead. But a Bernie Sanders supporter confronted a superdelegate and then leaked their private conversation. Not so bad. I'm not so concerned that he leaked the private conversation. What he leaked also was the personal email, doxing. So when the campaign devolves into this, and here's the thing, the reality of it is when you have hundreds of millions of people involved in anything, you're not going to be able to control everybody. So like this voter in DC tried to get Bernie Sanders' name off the roll, which is significantly worse in terms of the overall cause of democracy. But likewise, you have this Bernie Sanders supporter who shared the private conversation that he had with a superdelegate. Excuse me, a superdelegate out of Alaska, and shared the conversation. Again, I don't care about him sharing the conversation because anything you say to somebody, you should expect that it's going to be public. What I do care about was releasing her personal email, which, you know, even when Anonymous doxed Donald Trump, I guess just for me, it's just, you know, releasing someone's personal information is beyond the pale, in my personal opinion. Yeah, I mean, that's really where I draw the line. Like, as much as I dislike everything about Donald Trump, I still don't think they should have released his social security number and his cell phone number, whatever sensitive information that they released. But the so much going on in the news. I don't even want to talk about that anymore. All right, guys, I'm going to breeze through all these articles that I want to talk about tonight, because Senator Sanders is up at 10 o'clock, and I do know what that means. I do know that the show is going to be over, whether I want it to be over or not, which is good, because I need to be out of here by 10 o'clock anyway. There was another article I want to talk about, and then there's some major issues that I want to bring to the forefront. So bear with me as I talk about this article from International Business Times. And it's really dealing with Massachusetts politics, which is surprising to me. I don't really get involved. I'm in Boston, but I don't really get involved with the local politics much, because I'm just observing, I'm watching, I'm listening, I'm learning more. I don't know a lot about Massachusetts, enough to be an expert on Massachusetts. But I do know that Massachusetts is a lot more conservative than most people would ever believe. Massachusetts has some sincerely conservative pockets that are not just center right conservative, but extreme conservative. Put it like this: if you listen to the local radio station this morning going into work, you would hear people justifying Donald Trump's campaign manager, justifying his assault of a woman, saying that she was in the wrong and the campaign manager was in the right. There's a strong Donald Trump contingency here in Massachusetts, which blows me away. I mean, he won the state by leaps and bounds. There's a lot of conservatism right here in the state of Massachusetts, which is indicative by, or the best indicator of that, rather, is Charlie Baker, a Republican, won the most recent governorship. And it's in this story, it's the context of Governor Baker, that the story from GE is really fascinating. GE is looking to move from Connecticut. And from Connecticut, they are moving here to Boston on the promises of about $140 million in tax subsidies. Now, that's problematic in and of itself. But this is in the middle of a fight with the EPA. The EPA imposed fines on GE because of certain carcinogens that they allowed to leak in their past relationship in West Massachusetts. At the time of the leak, they were fined. They had a settlement of $250 million. In 2014, they decided that there needs to be a $615 million additional charge to move the toxins out of the state, right? They cleaned it up. Now they need to move it out of the state. GE said, no, we're not going to do that. In the middle of this very bitter fight over an issue that is very sensitive here in Massachusetts, Governor Baker has given the green light to GE to come to the state of Massachusetts and receive over I just lost the number that quick, $140 million worth of tax subsidies. So it shows you the emphasis. And now it's not just Governor Baker who's involved in this decision. Of course, Marty Walsh, who is the mayor of Boston, he's involved in it. He's a Democrat. He's involved in this decision. And so they're coming, and they're not only coming and taking tax subsidies, which is going to obviously take away from so many other programs, right? We'll talk about that portion in a second. But they're also coming on the backs of the EPA, refusing to remove the toxins, remove the carcinogens that they have been found guilty, and actually pled a settlement with, or agreed to a settlement with the EPA. Just shows you the priority. Now, it's a deeper connection because GE is a part of a particular political action committee that donated. All right, I'm sorry, let me put that in the correct order. GE donated $125,000 to the campaign of Governor Charlie Baker through a political action committee. And so that's just how the system works. I don't understand why it's not rocket science, or why it seems to be rocket science, particularly for progressives, when we complain about it happening on the conservative end of the spectrum all the time. Everybody knows that this $125,000 that Charlie Baker received from GE absolutely contributed to the decision that he made to bring in GE. Now, I want to talk about the fact that this is going to take jobs away from Connecticut, right? I want to talk about the fact that this $140 million, they could spend that locally on a lot of programs, in a lot of different ways, but they're giving it in exchange for GE to come to Boston. So we're robbing Connecticut to pay Massachusetts, to pay Boston in particular, but we're also robbing the people of Boston with $140 million worth of tax subsidies to give it to GE. And someone is going to make the argument that this campaign contribution of $125 had nothing to do with it. Matter of fact, if you believe Hillary Clinton, you can receive not only campaign contributions, but you can receive speaking fees, speaking royalties, and not be affected by the desires of these companies. What's going to be extremely difficult to do is, let's say peradventure Hillary Clinton wins, how is she going to make the argument against someone like Charlie Baker, who received $125,000 in campaign cash and then has issued or is ushering in rather this relationship with GE to the detriment to the tune of $140 million of tax subsidies? How is she going to convince anybody that that was wrong when she herself is doing the same thing? And I think that's one of the main things that I have with the broader election as a whole, is that we're sacrificing quite a few conservative, rather progressive principles in order to justify or in order to make ourselves comfortable with Hillary Clinton's positions. We're exchanging our beliefs in order to justify our support for Hillary Clinton. And obviously, when I say our, I'm not talking about me, and I'm probably not talking about you. But that's the thing. That's what's so troubling about this, is that we are selling out our values, and we're not going to be able to stand on those values when it comes time to, and I guess to a certain extent, they don't care, because they like the system exactly the way it is. Corporation wants X, corporation pays politician Y. Politician Y makes sure that X happens. But somehow we're supposed to believe that the $125,000 that Charlie Baker received is not does not have any influence on his decision to bring GE in, despite the fact that they still have this confrontation going on with the EPA over the state of Massachusetts. Which takes me to the second part. This entire race to the bottom of our current economic system, it is a race to the bottom. And I'm gonna unpack this a little bit more on another show when I actually get time to do deeper research. But do you understand, when we play the game of which city, which state, or which country is going to offer corporations the largest tax subsidy, it is ultimately a race to the bottom, because as low as you will go on terms of the tax burden, or as high as you're willing to go in terms of what you're going to give away in tax subsidies, the next state is going to have to go even lower on the tax burden and even higher on the tax subsidies that they give to the corporations. And as soon as you do that, give it about 10 or 15 years, there's going to be another state that's going to undercut you. And so now we've undercut Connecticut. Connecticut is going to lose jobs unless they're willing to move to Massachusetts. Everybody's not going to be able to move to Massachusetts. This is just how it happens. And it happens state by state. But even more detrimental to America as a whole is when it happens nation by nation. There's a study that I went through while I was studying on my master's level, and I'm just pure recall right here. No notes on this whatsoever, so I'm going to get something wrong, but I just want to give you the context anecdotally, and we'll unpack it more later. But there was a study about all of the nations. They're called the tiger nations, and I believe Ireland is one of them. And it talks about how low they go in terms of the taxes that they charge corporations, to the extent where they are actually now losing by having these corporations come in. The net gain from the corporations coming in is actually less than what they would have gotten if they have charged a regular tax rate or a standard taxation. But they wanted to incentivize corporations to come to their nation so badly They believe so much in this idea that corporations are going to be the engine of economic growth, or corporations are the engine of economic growth to the detriment of small businesses. They believe in that so much that they undercut themselves in order to outbid other nations. And you did see a confluence. You saw hundreds of corporations flood to these nations, but the net benefit to the nation was marginal at best. In actuality, they lost. And there's an article that I read, and I'm going to find it. I just, like I said, this is pure recall, but it just discusses how this is ultimately a race to the bottom. Because for every state and every nation that is going to lower their tax burden that they place on corporations, there's another one coming behind them. And how far will you go? How low can you ultimately go with this? I mean, are you going to charge? When you're giving away tax subsidies, there's a good chance you have a zero tax burden on them. They're going to get a net benefit in terms of taxation. So what are they contributing? Are they contributing jobs? Great, sure. What type of jobs? Are those jobs bringing in enough income and enough? See, we're shifting the entire burden. The entire burden is being shifted to the working force. And this is one of those conversations we probably could benefit with charts, because you see the corporation no longer has the tax burden. The tax burden has been shifted completely to the workers, to labor. But yet, this is the model that we chase after all around the world, because we really believe that the side of capital, as long as we incentivize capital, jobs will be created, no matter what those jobs pay, no matter what the net benefit, not only economic benefit, but the net social benefit that company has, no matter how that company treats its workers, no matter if those corporations end up having workers, maybe not GE, but other corporations who have workers that are going to depend on the safety net. And now you've taken $140 million, let's say, out of Boston, out of Massachusetts. Your safety net is not as strong as it used to be. We're bending over backwards. And this is something that you hear Bernie Sanders talk about all the time. We're bending over backwards for corporations. And somebody needs to take a minute and really examine, or just draw the conclusion and realize that the net gain from drawing all of these corporations and just rolling out the red carpet to these corporations is not beneficial to your community, to your society, to your nation. That's all I've got to say about that. I'll pull some charts out for that on the next call, on the next show. All right. What else do I want to talk about? I'm going to take calls at 9:30. So in 8 minutes, 857-600-0518. This is as good a spot as any for me to slow down and tell you to support the Benjamin Dixon Show as we continue to grow, as we continue to do all the things that we do. We want you to become a part of it. Subscribe to the channel. And I want to take a moment to thank every single one of you who not only have supported in the past, but you're supporting right now. I want to thank you because we crossed over 8,000 subscribers on the Benjamin Dixon Show. On YouTube, we are well over 8,000. We're at 8,200, almost 8,300 on Spreaker. So if you're listening via Spreaker, make sure that you subscribe and share the podcast with somebody else. If you're watching via YouTube, make sure that you subscribe right where you are, like the video, share the video, and let's keep moving this process. We're going to keep building the platform. We're going to keep creating a space, not only for my voice, but also for your voice. Even in the chat rooms that we have, in the website that we created, writers that are writing, co-hosts and other shows that we're bringing on. We're crafting out a space for progressive voices, and progressive voices that are unapologetically progressive, and particularly progressive voices that are not going to cater to any establishment, because unless that establishment is a pure progressive establishment, we're not kowtowing to anybody. So all of that to say, thank you for your support so far. Thank you for all that you've done so far, and continue to do what you do. Let's get to 10,000. We want to get to 10,000 before June, before the conventions. I think that's a good as marker as any. So help us get to 10,000. Share, like, subscribe. All right. That being said, let me talk about two other things. No, I got to go to this first. I got to talk about Donald Trump and his ridiculousness tonight on MSNBC. Where he said that there should be some type of punishment for women who have abortions. Very shortly after that, he took it back and said he didn't really mean that there should be a punishment for women who have abortions. There should be some type of punishment for the doctors who perform it. Now, this isn't news. This is just a continuation in the clown car that is this disaster that is the Republican primary. The Republican Party is broken. They are broken. They're at the point almost of no return, and they have to make some decisions at their convention as to what they're going to do. But either Donald Trump, all the above, Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, and John Kasich, they are all very, very much problematic. But the news portion is that, you know, I guess I can't make it news other than the fact to say that this is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard in my life. However, this is consistent with Republicanism. This is consistent with conservatism. Donald Trump only says what Republicans have been thinking for a long time. And I guarantee you that there's at least 2 or 3, 4, 500,000, maybe 1 million pro-life people who absolutely liked what Donald Trump said in terms of some type of penalty. So the news is not that Donald Trump said it. The news is that this is consistent with Republican ideology, and Republicans are trying to distance themselves from Donald Trump. But Donald Trump is a mirror image of the Republican Party. He's the id of the Republican Party. He is the one who's emotional, saying everything that they wanted to say, but they have hidden behind political correctness of their own in order for political expediency, of course, right? So he's saying exactly what they won't say. He's saying pretty much what Ted Cruz believes. I guarantee you Ted Cruz would want to outlaw abortion. He's just not dumb enough to say it out loud. Donald Trump is dumb enough to say it out loud. Ted Cruz is not dumb enough to say Donald Trump started it first. He started it first. Donald Trump is dumb enough to say that and get called out by Anderson Cooper, or whatever his name is. Donald Trump has zero filter. And so we're getting a chance to look in the heart and soul of the Republican Party. And that shouldn't be news to anyone, except the fact that the Republican Party is embarrassed. And they realize that they're writing with Donald Trump. They are writing a blank check. Listen, Susan Sarandon and all the stuff that happened with her and the possibility of some Bernie Sanders supporters going for Donald Trump instead of Hillary Clinton. I don't have any commentary on that particular thing right now, because I have a whole debate that we're going to host about that. That's neither here nor there. The fact of the matter is that the Republican Party has created a monster that is writing a blank check for the Democratic Party, so that if the Democratic Party even put up Martin O'Malley would be able to beat Donald Trump. Right now, Hillary Clinton, who earlier in this election only beat Donald Trump by like 1 point, Hillary Clinton has even beaten Donald Trump by 11 points. And the question is, can Donald Trump track back to the center enough to overcome his negative ratings? I said this to a colleague this morning, and I'll leave it here. I said this to a colleague this morning, and I will leave it here as I read some comments. He asked me, a colleague of mine asked me, do I think Donald Trump is for real, or do I think Donald Trump is in the bag for Hillary Clinton? And that seems to be a narrative that has come back to life. Here's my answer to that. One, there's only one way to tell. If when they get to the general election, he gets the nomination, and Donald Trump starts moving back to the center, and Donald Trump starts acting like a mature adult and not like a 5-year-old. If you see that type of behavior in the general election, that means Donald Trump really wants to win, and he's not in the bag for anybody. However, if you see Donald Trump continue to act like a buffoon, continuing to act like a child, continuing to say the most repugnant and ridiculous things that are just not acceptable for probably 80% of America, even some Republicans, if he continues to do that, then I think that at that point, if he does that in general election, what else could you say? I mean, it just makes absolutely no sense at that point, right? Somebody in his camp would have told him, all right, We won the general election. We won the primaries. Now let's go for a general election strategy, right? If he ignores that, then I would start to think like everybody else that he's just here to help Hillary Clinton win. But I can't say that at this point. I have to see his general election campaign strategy. And I personally think Donald Trump's ego is big enough for him to actually try to win this thing. All right. So I've got some breaking news out of Mississippi. The Mississippi right on time with Georgia and right on time with North Carolina. Mississippi Senate votes for sweeping anti-LGBT religious freedom bill. The Mississippi Senate voted 31-17 on Wednesday to pass what critics say is the most sweeping anti-LGBT legislation in the U.S. House Bill 1523 would protect people, religious organizations, and certain businesses that refuses services specifically to the LGBT community. The bill will also protect these people opposed to recognizing the gender identity of transgender people. Yeah, so this sounds exactly like the Georgia bill, and it has elements of the North Carolina bill. The transgender section of the North Carolina bill could have been snatched directly from this. They passed this tonight, 31-17 in the Mississippi Senate. We'll see what the House, although the bill already passed the Mississippi House in February. So now it's just a matter of if the governor is going to sign it. Here's the problem. No major businesses are investing in Mississippi. Maybe I think there's a Toyota factory outside of Jackson, Mississippi. But I don't think that there's enough economic pressure in Mississippi, like Marvel, like Disney, like AMC to actually, and Coca-Cola to actually pull, actually, well, there is the Pepsi plant in Hattiesburg. Okay. Let me take that argument off the table. As I think about Mississippi, there is a Walmart distribution factory in right in Lincoln County. It's going to take businesses to threaten to pull out their corporations to stop something like this. So we'll see what happens if that type of pressure comes on. But to the heart of this, the most disturbing thing about this is that they're casting bigotry in terms of protection. They are allowing public places, public services to say, I don't want to help this person because they are gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer, and plus, and everything else is included in the plus. They're able to say, this is a business, this is a service, and they're casting this bigotry and this discrimination in terms of protecting preachers from not having to perform gay marriages, when preachers never have to perform gay marriages in the first place. So they take this fear of something that doesn't exist, and then they wrap in the most sweeping discriminatory policies, transphobic, homophobic policies imaginable, and they shove it down the throats of Mississippians and Georgians and North Carolinians, all based on this unsubstantiated fear of something that you never had to do in the first place, except it extends now further to people like Justin Holzenbach informed us last night. The sister legislation in Georgia actually extended to paramedics and people who provide life-saving services to the community at large now have the ability to say, my religious freedoms, my religion rather, prevents me from servicing you. And so now life-threatening situations are going to be based on whether or not a person is actually human enough to do the right thing versus the obligation that people have from law, by law, to do the right thing. Now, I'm going to say this again, and you guys can get mad at me. I don't think you will, because I hope you understand where I'm coming from. Stuff like this is a real threat. These are things that actually can become law. All the governor of Mississippi has to do now is sign this bitch. Once he signs this, This is law. And now you are putting the physical health, the emotional health, and just the all around good nature of humanity on the line for stupidity, unsubstantiated fear, and wrapping this unsubstantiated fear in the guise of being protected from something that doesn't exist. These are things that there are so many states, and I don't have the numbers. I wish I had somebody who could just call in, Google the numbers. How many states do not have protections for the LGBT community on the books? And I swear to God, I genuinely wish Hillary Clinton was not in this race, because a lot of Bernie supporters just hate Hillary Clinton. And you guys, quite honestly, hate her enough to, some of you, not all of you, I think some of you just have principal disagreements with her like me. I have a lot of principal disagreements with her. Some of you feel like she's the enemy. But it is, in my opinion, a critical time where you could get somebody like Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz, who would want to bring this level of bigotry wrapped in religious protections on a national level. Ted Cruz, take the very worst of Hillary Clinton. Take everything that you dislike about Hillary Clinton. Let me tell y'all something. Y'all better hope damn well Donald Trump wins this nomination, because I am not afraid of Donald Trump. I am not afraid of the racists that he endears, that he empowers. I'm not afraid of any of that, because you know what? Donald Trump is a bumbling idiot that would take probably 4 years to figure out how to bring a piece of legislation and get some support so that it can come to the floor. Ted Cruz knows the system well enough that he would go in with an express agenda along the lines of what you see in Mississippi, along the lines of what you see in Georgia, along the lines of what you see in North Carolina. He will bring this type of legislation to the nation. He will appoint justices who are going to see the world through his own lens. So if you think, and this is not a case for Hillary Clinton. Like I said, I wish Hillary Clinton was not in this race for many, many reasons. But if you think you hate and dislike Hillary Clinton, add on everything that you dislike about Hillary Clinton. I want you to add on religious zealotry, like the Crusades. That's Ted Cruz. That's this Mississippi anti-LGBT law. That's the North Carolina law. That's the Georgia law. And the bad thing about it, now, that's about as good a thing I could ever say about Hillary Clinton right now. The worst thing about this is that you have Democrats voting for this. I guarantee you, in Mississippi, you had Democrats vote for this. Georgia, you had Democrats vote for it. North Carolina, you had 11 Democrats vote for it. Which begs the question, at what point do we say stop uniting blue? Because just voting for somebody who has a D by their name could be voting your own death sentence in extreme cases like we see in Mississippi. Or it's voting your worst economic interest. Or it's voting for more, you're voting against your progressive values. So at what point do you say, I cannot vote for this Democrat who voted for this Mississippi legislation? This election is a cluster F of choices. This is a cluster F of choices, because some of you may be comfortable going third party and listen, I'm not knocking you. You do what you do. You. One thing you're going to find is that whatever your decision is, I'm not here to try to change your mind. I'm not trying to change your mind about voting for Bernie or bust, voting for Hillary. You could be a Hillary Clinton supporter. I'm not going to try to change your mind anymore. Only thing I'm doing, and you can go back through every tweet, through every show. The one thing that I do and I cannot stand is hypocrisy. And I call out hypocrisy no matter where I see it. And I just happen to see a lot of it on Hillary Clinton's camp. So go read all my texts. But the point I'm trying to make is, if you're Bernie or bust, that's your business. If you are Hillary or bust, that's your business. If you're a Puma, that's your I don't care. I don't care how you vote at this point. But likewise, it's my business to say that somebody like Ted Cruz and policies like we see in Mississippi and we see in Georgia and North Carolina and the Democrats who support it have no place in power in the United States of America. Period. 857-600-0518. And I just saw, hang on, guys. Let me get my screen over here. I can't see the screen over here. Let's see if I can get the screen going. All right, you can tweet me at the BPD show. I want to talk about something else. Now, somebody's going to misconstrue that as a positive rant on Hillary Clinton. I don't think so. Here are a couple of Massachusetts law. I told you Massachusetts was conservative. Massachusetts law does not protect gender expression identity from discrimination in public accommodation. Utah does not protect sexual orientation or gender identity expression from discrimination in public accommodations. New Hampshire, New York, Wisconsin, none of them protect gender identity expression from discrimination in employment, housing, and public accommodations. Illinois, Iowa. Let me make sure I'm reading this map right, because I can't. Part of me doesn't believe this. Part of me just can't believe this many states do not offer protections. Do not offer protections for discrimination, and then anyway, that's the condition that we're in. All right. It's the last thing, maybe one of the last things I'm going to talk about tonight, and then I'm getting the hell out of here. Tomorrow night, the Scandinavian perspective begins. Again, part 2, second episode. And I will get the exact start time with you. At a minimum, I know it starts at 8 o'clock. I'm sure somebody is typing in one of my chat rooms right now to tell me whether or not it's going to start at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. I'll make sure I give you that distinction very shortly. But regardless, the Scandinavian perspective starts before the Benjamin Dixon Show. So I want you here. Check out Niz, and then check me out at 9. At 9, I'm bringing on some of the Progressive Army. I want to bring on Anoa. I want to bring on Solomon, and I want to bring on Niz. He will already be here. And I also want to bring on Nick, a new addition to the Progressive Army team. So tonight is going to be sort of a hangout as we talk politics. So make sure you're there. And that's it. So last thing I want to talk about is the shenanigans that I'm seeing. So many shenanigans. It's just, this is one of the stupidest. I'm sorry. This is one of the stupidest elections that I've ever seen. And I'm sorry. It really is mind boggling. What I'm talking about right now is what the behavior I'm seeing from Hillary Clinton supporters and Hillary Clinton surrogates, and particularly white progressives that support Hillary Clinton, and then white privileged progressives. White economically privileged and just white privilege progressives attacking and trying to lay some type of guilt at the feet of Bernie Sanders white supporters, as though they benefit from a privilege that no one else benefits from. And as crazy as it sounds, as confusing as it may sound, what I just said to you, that's how ridiculous as it is, because it makes absolutely no sense at all. But what you're finding more and more and more, the new play, this is the new playbook. And I hope Black Hillary Clinton supporters, I hope you're proud of yourselves. You have the right to support Hillary Clinton, right on. That's your business, right? But Black Hillary Clinton supporters, they have loaned Hillary Clinton the language of intersectionality and the language of race. They've brought some credibility to Hillary Clinton. They've given her a lot of juice. They've given her everything they've had, so that Hillary Clinton can actually be called a sister. There's an article out there that said Hillary Clinton is a sister. Now imagine if there was an article right now out there saying that Bernie Sanders is a bruh. So the Black community at large, particularly the Black misleadership class, they have loaned Hillary Clinton the language of intersectionality and the appearance of understanding race issues on a nuanced level greater than what Bernie Sanders could ever understand. At the same time, they have given a pass to white Hillary Clinton supporters and white Hillary Clinton surrogates to run around the damn internet and run around television acting as though they are some type of Malcolm X, because I have seen one too many white people who support Hillary Clinton come and act as though they understand the nuances of white privilege more than black people. They understand the fight of the black community more than black Bernie Sanders supporters. Like, they have the right to call us out. They have the right to speak authoritatively on the issues of black America, and black folks who support Bernie Sanders just don't understand. That is the new play. And I'm sitting back just wondering, at what point will the black Hillary Clinton supporters say, you know what? Enough's enough. I think it's beyond that point. I don't think they have a chance to do that anymore. And what's bothering me the most is that they have loaned so much credibility, so many catchphrases and so many token words and, intersectionality and white privilege and all these catchphrases that have significant meaning, but you've given them a blank check and allowed them to run amok throughout the interwebs, throughout television, espousing rhetoric as though they have a nuanced understanding. And when they say things, it comes off as shallow as the mud I just tracked through in my Timberlands earlier tonight. That's the depth of their understanding of the racial problem here in America. But because you wanted to make sure Hillary Clinton was seen as a sister, you stopped calling them out in order to defend Hillary Clinton. And at least you've done so publicly. I can't say what you've done in private. I don't give a damn what you've done in private. In public, you have given people like Joan Walsh, Karen Finney, even though Karen Finney is not white, but you've given people like David Brock, as white as the screen on my computer right now. You have given them a blank pass to run around and claim things such as who understands Black Lives Matter and who doesn't. Or this ad did not have the right amount of people in it, the right amount of black faces in it. Therefore, Bernie Sanders is a racist or doesn't understand Black Lives Matter. At what point is the black Hillary Clinton contingency going to get tired of it and rein in their white liberals? I don't think they are. I think we're beyond that point. I think it's at the point of no return. I think you have completely marginalized your own movement. I think we have, and now I'm including myself as in with the word we. You have marginalized your own movement, and you have. Hang on, let me see if I can catch this call here. Where the hell is my mouse? Sorry, whoever's calling, I can't even see my damn mouse. So anyway, I'm gonna just keep talking. You've marginalized your own movement. And the substance, the thing that you've been fighting for, the thing that you've been working so hard for, you've just given it over to Hillary Clinton's campaign. And now everybody who understands 3 or 4 key phrases is out there pimping privilege and trying to check it's such a cluster F of stupidity that's happening right now. And I'm just amazed that the black people because let me tell you something. The reason I'm amazed is because as much as I appreciate and I like you guys who are Bernie Sanders supporters, you do understand you can only go so far with me. I think we've made that clear, right? You can only go so far in terms of what I would allow you to say with regard to race. Like, there's a point where I will say, hold up. No. Matter of fact, go back. There's a video, a caller who called in, jumping down, calling out President Obama with such bitterness. That was like, hold on, brother. Are you a brother? Or where? No. And he was talking about the black leaders. I'm like, hold on. You're not going to speak about the black community in a certain way. So I hope you guys do understand, like, we have this wonderful relationship. But it's like me. I'm not going to come and talk about the plight of women, and I'm not going to talk about women in a condescending tone, and I'm not going to talk about it in a way where women are going to have to say, hold on, Ben, we like you, we like what you have to say, but you got to reel back that bitter rhetoric against women. Here's the point. As I go even further down this rabbit hole, when you give people a blank pass and you excuse anything and everything they do, and you're so concerned about their victory that you're not concerned about the conversation, then you marginalize your own movement. And that is exactly what I believe, and I have seen lately from Hillary Clinton supporters, particularly Black Hillary Clinton supporters. They're so vested in beating Bernie Sanders that they have allowed white liberals on their side to marginalize the conversation on privilege, racism, and white supremacy. Meanwhile, on the Bernie Sanders side, we have had so many uncomfortable conversations. I'm tired of having them. Right? We've had so many conversations where we have had to go back and forth and explain why it's not proper for you to say something in this context, and why maybe we should be more open to hearing you, even though you may be saying things that hurt our. We've had uncomfortable conversations, and conversations that have been necessary to move the national dialogue forward on systemic racism. We've been doing the dirty work over here because we've had to, and because we're not afraid to, and we're not underneath this notion that Bernie Sanders has ever been perfect on race. But this idea that Hillary Clinton has been flawless on race has been promulgated so much by the Black community that supports Hillary Clinton that now they have marginalized their own movement. They started with Ashley Williams when they decided that Black lives did not matter as much when they challenged Hillary Clinton. That's when it really started, in my opinion, because you saw a lot of Black people turn on the Black Lives Matter movement that was being carried out by Ashley Williams in order to defend Hillary Clinton. Strike one. And now you have all of these surrogates running around the country trying to say, look at the white privilege of that white person who supports Bernie Sanders, knowing full and damn well they benefit from the same exact privilege. and what they're calling out, the thing that tipped the straw that broke the camel's back, was this conversation online today and on some media outlets that Hillary Clinton being in Harlem was so significant as compared to Bernie Sanders, who was in another part of the country in a predominantly white state. And how that was indicative that Bernie Sanders just doesn't get race. And how Hillary Clinton being in Harlem, oh, that just shows that she wonderfully understands race. Hat tip to Kyle over at Secular Talk. I heard him call it McFeminism, when you have a shallow version of feminism. That's McRacism. McRacism. When you have the shallow interpretation of what diversity really is. McDiversity. That's hard to say. McRacism is easier. You have the shallow interpretation, and your interpretation of anti-racism is really only for your political expediency. And any conversation that is uncomfortable, that would advance the cause of anti-racism, you're willing to stifle and you're willing to suffocate because you don't want to bring any negative points against Hillary Clinton. You don't want to have an earnest conversation about Hillary Clinton's jaded past on race. You would rather say that she has a better position on race than Bernie Sanders, who did go to the March on Washington, who, protested against segregation in Chicago, was chained to a Black woman as an ally with her in solidarity in his teens, who, endorsed Reverend Jesse Jackson in 84 and 88. Who, has been consistent on policies for 50 years. You would rather whitewash Hillary Clinton's jaded past on race and make Bernie Sanders look like he's somehow a racist. And now, because you've done such a good job at it, you've given Hillary Clinton's white supporters and white surrogates a blank check to run around, to run amok, and throw around white privilege and water that down. So that now, who's going to take your ass seriously? Who's going to take you seriously? Who's going to take the conversation about white supremacy seriously when white supremacy has now become political fodder for Hillary Clinton? Who's going to take the conversation about Black Lives Matter seriously when you've laid down Black Lives Matter in order to support Hillary Clinton? Who is going to take white privilege seriously when you've allowed them to run around and just throw it around like it's money? Hey, white privilege for you, white privilege for you, white privilege for everybody. Not a damn person. And that's your fault, Black Hillary supporters. I'm done with that. All right, 857-600. I keep saying the number, guys. Let me fix this screen. And while I fix the screen, make sure you take a moment to subscribe to the channel. subscribe to the channel, and make sure you share. Here's factory reset. I think the factory reset didn't do anything for me. Oh, yes, it did. Okay, I can see my screen over here now. 857-600-0518. I want to take at least one caller before we're done. We have 6 minutes, so if you want to get in the conversation, this is your opportunity to do so now. Tomorrow night, the Scandinavian Perspective. And after the Scandinavian Perspective, it's going to be a Progressive Army hangout. So mark your calendars. I don't care what's on TV. I need you here. Support progressive media, independent progressive media, which is an entirely different rant that I wanted to go on today about the problems with progressive media. But go see my Twitter timeline from this morning. That says it all. While we wait on that, that's all the announcements I have. Let me start announcing some things that are coming up in the month of April. I will be attending the month of May. I will be attending the Left Forum, and I will be participating in a forum with David Pakman, Sam Cedar. I believe Glenn Ford from the Black Agenda Report will be there. We will be there discussing the role of independent media. That's in April. We are gearing up to attend the conventions, both conventions in June. The Republican National Convention and the Democratic National Convention, to try to bring you some live coverage. So you can help us get there by becoming a subscriber, watching some videos. Every video counts. And if you really like what we're doing, go to BPD. I don't even know my own address. What's my patreon.com/the BPD show. All right. Anyway, I guess everybody who was calling in got tired of me not being able to answer. So, folks, that's a wrap for tonight. It's been fun. It's been real. And it's been real fun. See me on Twitter. We're going to go watch Bernie Sanders. And then if I don't see you on Twitter, I will see you tomorrow here, the same channel, same time. I'm stalling because I knew somebody will call right then. There we go. One caller. Only caller for tonight. Caller, what's your name, comment, and or question? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, dude. I'm some reason I don't think my team on YouTube can hear you. And I can barely hear you. But I did hear your point. So let me repeat it to the people listening. And I didn't get your name. What's your name again? Corey, thanks so much for the call, my friend. I have to figure out what's going on with that phone line. But Corey said he has a problem. It's a brilliant point, Corey. Corey has a problem with people who are making $5 or $6 million a year talking about privilege and throwing this. Okay, I've got 3 minutes to make this point. Yeah, I figured that, Grossman. Thanks, DG. Here's the bigger point. Sorry if you didn't hear the question. What he was saying is he has a problem with people who are making millions of dollars a year talking about people, white privilege. You may not agree with me. I'm sure there's plenty of Hillary Clinton supporters who won't agree with me, and there might be a lot of black people who don't agree with me. The greatest form of privilege in America is economic privilege. Economic privilege trumps everything. Because you know what? You could be a black person with great economic wealth, and you will have more privilege and more opportunities than somebody white, born, piss poor in the ghetto. Bottom line, I don't care how you cut it. Now, will you as a black person who makes millions of dollars still face some type of racism? I'm sure you will if you ever get pulled over. What are the odds of your Bentley getting pulled over? If it does get pulled over, you're going to face some racism. Very much, right? You could be like the tennis star who was walking in New York and all of a sudden he was mistaken for somebody else. They wrestled his ass to the ground. So yes, even as a rich person, black person, you will face racism. But does that erase your economic privilege? No, it doesn't. But what's more insulting than that, and I think this is what Corey was talking about, is when you have white people who make millions of dollars, who benefit from white privilege as well as economic privilege, talking about the white privilege of somebody who's making about $40,000 a year, living paycheck to paycheck because they support Bernie Sanders. That marginalizes the conversation on white privilege. That reduces it, that lessens its value. When you allow people like Joan Walsh to get on MSNBC and speak online, and she can say whatever the hell she wants to online, but you empower her, you give her voice, she's like the cool white girl, right? Is that her title online? You allow people like that to get online and get on television and lecture other white people who make maybe 1% or 10% of what she makes, who are living paycheck to paycheck, who have more economic experience in common with me than she would ever have, or that Oprah would ever have. Not that she's anywhere near Oprah, but you get the point. You allow her to get on television and lecture down to people who do not experience economic privilege, and she lectures them on white privilege as though she doesn't benefit from both white privilege and economic privilege. You lessen and cheapen the conversation. You marginalize your own movement, and you have nobody else to blame but yourself. It's 10 o'clock, and I am out this. Wrong music. That's
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Crazy mother.
If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/the BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.